Hiya. Following our failure to record our live session the other day, I thought I'd just record the opening and also the closing, which was a looking forward. So this is a looking at module 2 about money, and then looking forward to right livelihoods in module 3. So money is the subject of this module, and I looked up money on Google, and there's money, there's wonga, notes, bung, dosh, cash, readies, bucks, spondulics, quids, wad, folding stuff, honk, lolly, lucre. I could go on and on. We probably have more names for money than we do for sex, and it's kind of interesting, I think. Why is that? Why are there so many words for money? And clearly, for me, there must be some deep-seated emotional or existential issues tied up with money. Issues around scarcity, starvation, the misuse of power, and other traumas. And I think they're all tied up in our concepts and our ideas about money. Right at the beginning of the module, Margaret Kennedy mentioned in her book, Interest and Inflation-Free Money, that instead of paying interest to those who have more money than they need in order to keep money in circulation, people should pay a small fee if they keep money out of circulation. And that's the central message of her book. And by now, I think you've probably got this idea that that much in our economic system has been created or ends up being created in a way that favors the people who already have against the people who have not. And that was something that we discussed quite a lot in this live session about, how is it, we then moved on to that debt imperative, how is it that money is created, and how can banks get away with that? And how come people aren't absolutely going berserk and jumping up and down and revolting about it? Which is a really, really good question. I'm afraid I don't have any answer. So some of the really important concepts in this module is about debt. So it's about, again, how money is created. So just about all money is created by private banks, not public banks, by private banks who issue debt completely without, well, there has to be there's some reserve ratio. So they have to have some degree of savings to back the debts that they create. But it's something like, 8 to 1, 10 to 1. And that money then goes into circulation. And then more money has to be created in order to pay back the debt plus the interest. So you get this inbuilt growth in the economy, which results in us being on this treadmill where we have to buy stuff in order to keep the economy going, because if it doesn't, it crashes. And then we end up having to mine and pull in more resources to create more stuff. So if you haven't got that thing about how money is created and how money is created by issuing debt, and how that drives consumption, I think that's really important. You should go back and have a look at that, and have a look at some of the videos that talk about how money is created. We also saw how compounding of interest ensures exponential growth. So that when you have money that is when you have a loan, or say you have an interest-bearing bond, so you get a certain amount of interest every year, you reinvest that interest, then you're earning not only interest on the original loan, but you're earning interest on the on whatever that you're earning as well. So it's continually multiplying. It then becomes an exponential function. And again, that's a really important concept that happens in this module. One of the big conclusions is that unless we address the structural dysfunctionality of the growth imperative in our current economic and monetary systems, we're unlikely to succeed to transitioning to a regenerative, resilient, and sustainable culture. The growth basically will wipe out any gains in becoming more resource efficient, or becoming more sustainable, so doing things in a more sustainable way. There's this debate about whether there's any such thing as green growth, and I think ultimately that it's been proved that there's probably no such thing, that we have to effectively lower consumption. That our monetary system transfer wealth from the poor to the rich by design. Interest payments are a way of transferring wealth from the poor to the rich, both within nations and internationally, and that leads to this concept of the wealth pyramid, that the money just keeps being siphoned up to this very, very small minority at the top. There is also this module explored the inequalities in how the US dollar is used as the international reserve currency. And then from there, from all the kind of problems and issues we have with money, the module moved on to solutions. So some of the solutions and some of the ways in which we can change this dysfunctional money system is to move to Islamic banking. So under Islam, you're not allowed to charge interest. Incidentally, that was also the case in Christianity as well, but sometime in the Middle Ages that got dropped. But Muslim banks still don't charge interest, so they take a share in the business. So they're investors rather than charging interest. There was a proposal that was put forward about emissions-based currency units as a way of which would shrink in over time as we created less and less emissions. So that was a way of shrinking the money supply in lockstep with us cutting carbon emissions. Local money, so there's a whole series of ways in which we can create local money, which then keeps money in local economies. And again, there's some really interesting stuff about how and why, how it keeps money in local, in locales, and why that's so important. There was a section about cryptocurrencies because they're kind of all the rage now. It's too early to know really if cryptos are going to be a solution to some of the problems, but there's some potential there. Other ways of taking that fundamental use of money as an exchange is to have let schemes. So let schemes are where people put in, or time banking schemes, or where people put in, they trade time, they trade skills and resources. So, I go and put up a shelf for you and you give me a massage, that kind of thing. So there's that sort of peer-to-peer exchange. Another way in which we can circumvent this monetary system is our co-production scheme. So, for instance, community-supported agriculture. So you buy a share in the output of a farm, and often people are expected, people in that community-supported agriculture scheme are expected to spend some time to do some, a certain amount of weekly help on the farm. So there's a kind of co-production, and there's many examples there of with social services, with energy supplies and energy resources, how we're getting more and more kind of co-production. And there's also other local investment vehicles which are happening now, which some examples are credit unions, cooperative banks, community land trusts, cooperatives. They're all ways that you can invest in and own local resources and infrastructure. Other examples are housing co-ops or energy cooperatives. And many of these are solutions. So it's important that these solutions basically are widening this concept of a return. So returns are not merely monetary, they're also social and ecological. So triple bottom line accounting. Multiple benefits are derived from investing in the wealth and health of communities. So communities, ecosystems, bioregions, at that level, we can do quite a lot to change the economic system in which we live. So that's a brief overview of Module 2.